Who's excited about DPDK, by the way? Some hands, yeah. So you all hate the planet. So Lukas has been working on this as part of his PhD research for the Brno University. Then he came to us for a internship as part of that program that he's doing. And then, of course, we try to keep him and so he can work on DPDK, both for the benefit of the SuriCata project and as well for his own research, which should hopefully also benefit the larger ecosystem. I don't think I should talk about snaps right now because everyone has already talked about it. It's great love for snaps. So please, a warm welcome for Lukas from our team.
Thank you, everyone. So, I think let's try it. All right, so today I would like to talk to you about DPDK in SuriCata, and more specifically about DPDK prefilters in SuriCata. This talk has 6 days later in the name of it because it's like an update talk about the whole state of DPDK in SuriCata. So a little introduction of myself. My name is Lukas. I'm newly OISF team member, but at the same time researcher at Testnet and because of that, a PhD student at Brno University of Technology. I also go by the nickname DPDK guy here. It often helps just to introduce myself. So today I would like to cover DPDK state in SuriCata in the big picture, and then present you what we have come up with the DPDK prefilter, some early results. Then I would like to present just brief results of IPS support in DPDK prefilter as well, and lastly, and kind of design of packets metadata that will be supported by DPDK prefilter soon. All right, so DPDK is a data plane development kit. It's a set of libraries for fast packet acquisition. As you can see on the diagram on the right, SuriCata have different modules like packet capture, packet decoding, detection, and output. DPDK so far is only concerned in the packet capture module. It's a high-performance set of libraries, and the way it mainly differs from AF packet is that it constantly asks the NICs for new packets, so it constantly pulls packets out of the NIC, whereas the classic architecture like AF packet works on an interrupt level. It's also a hardware-oriented capture interface. It tries to be very close to the hardware, but at the same time tries to be generic enough to cover at least most of the NICs available in the market. There has been introduced official support for DPDK in SuriCata already, and that's in version SuriCata 7.0 beta. And of course, that will be part of the official 7.0 release as well. So we will be very happy to give the last-minute feedback of it so that it's really perfect at the time of the release. Some of the motivation why should you try that even right now is that it brings another 15% increase in performance from my tests compared to AF packet. I've presented those results at SuriCon 2021. Of course, the increase depends heavily on the traffic mix and the rules as well, but 15% is still solid gain to get for free, basically. what DPDK offers right now, it offers support for IDS and IPS mode in Suricata in workers run mode. DPDK works a bit different from AF packet, let's say. It kind of cuts off the kernel part so that the user space Suricata application communicates directly with the NIC itself. So basically, the whole configuration logic had to be implemented in Suricata as well. It can have some benefits as well. You don't need to worry about the ETH tool configuration procedures. Suricata does it all for you from the very start. So far, the work has been mainly tested on Intel and NVIDIA network cards because they are just the most common ones we got our hands on. Right, so that was kind of the overall DPDK support that will be officially supported in Suricata 7.0. Now, I work on DPDK prefilters. DPDK prefilters is kind of architecture that might resemble a bit auto FP mode, as we will see. I will explain that later on. But what the DPDK prefilter is it's a small or basically any size of software in front of Suricata that can run certain, let's say, logic. This logic should filter incoming traffic. It communicates with Suricata regarding the bypass or other things as well. And the prefilter also can add any kind of metadata to individual packets. As you can see from the diagram, the packets come from the NIC and they go through the prefilter. The prefilter might do some packet processing on them, and then those are passed to Suricata. Suricata has the ability to communicate with the DPDK prefilter with the bypass channel that's in the middle. And that's how Suricata can bypass any flow in a asynchronous manner, because both systems run parallel to each other and they communicate through messages. As a result, the DPDK prefilter can contain bypass tables, which we will see. And these bypass tables are not shared with any core. And as a result, DPDK can very efficiently operate on, let's say, as a single core. Either DPDK prefilter or the NICs itself can add metadata to the packets so that Suricata processing is actually sped up. Suricata can use the metadata to, let's say, it might skip certain Suricata modules, or it can just be another source of information for rule writers as well. It's when I sometimes present this idea, it sometimes gets kind of confused that the DPDK prefilters only provides the basic bypass-only logic. And this is not intended to be true, because DPDK prefilters should also offer a possibility to include the higher level logic, or basically support any application that you have that you want to connect with Suricata. And this is then much higher level idea than only do a bypass in prefilter. It doesn't always just degrade performance, because some people might see it as another box in the pipeline. But from my tests, it really offers even performance improvements, especially in heavy bypass use cases. it can be very much a playground for research and hardware vendors to experiment with new stuff, with new bypass methods, with so that basically the whole logic around the bypassing is completely separated from the Suricata itself, and you can easily transfer the whole logic elsewhere, either to Suricata or to hardware itself. As I mentioned, DPDK prefilter might not be just a little thing in front of Suricata, but it can be very much any application, even a firewall or just some routing application that passes packets to Suricata and also provides extra logic. So yeah. Kinda the overall architecture of DPDK prefilter is that, I mean, the common use case is that it receives packets of the NIC, and then based off, let's say, RSS hash, it can distribute the packets to individual Suricata workers. So these packets are distributed, and then in this way, it resembles the auto-FP mode, where one core is receiving packets and it's distributing the packets to other Suricata workers. But as these systems, let's say the DPDK prefilter and Suricata are both asynchronous processes, they need to some kind of communication, especially in the beginning, and that's why they are connected through the IPC API. And that's kind of, they communicate in the beginning and how they agree what to use, what offloads to use, how they are going to communicate and stuff like that. Then there is also a configuration memory zone, which is shared between the prefilter itself and Suricata. So it doesn't require some duplication between of configuration between Suricata and DPDK prefilter. As I mentioned, the bypass channel. Bypass channel is done through messages, and kind of the whole message system is built around DPDK rings, if anybody would be interested. Message rings are a way how Suricata tells prefilter which flow to bypass, but it can also ask prefilter about the activity of the flow. So this kind of logic is this kind of the same logic that's currently in Suricata in the bypass as well. Of course, there can be multiple cores of prefilter and many cores of Suricata workers as well. The whole concept can be scalable to any number of cores you want. Just to jump on the early results, which I've reached with the prefilter architecture. This graph shows comparison between the standalone DPDK Suricata, so basically Suricata reading from the network interface card itself directly, and the blue line stands for DPDK prefilter being in between the DPDK Suricata and the network card. It basically shows that both lines are kind of similar, because you see that the x-axis is the speed at which packets were transmitted against Suricata, and y-axis shows the percentage of dropped packets. So it really shows that it doesn't degrade performance, it's kind of the same. But this was not really a huge bypass use case, because ET open rules doesn't contain many bypass keywords. The traffic I replayed on it was not very much bypassed, and because of that, it was really similar to the standalone DPDK Suricata. But when I try to bypass encrypted TLS traffic, which basically the traffic consisted of encrypted TLS traffic like from 80%. And then I was able to see that DPDK Suricata, DPDK Prefilter with Suricata reach much higher speeds. And as you can see, DPDK primary Suricata, so running on its own, started dropping packets at 8.8 gigabits per second, while as the DPDK Prefilter started dropping packets only after 11.6 gigabits per second. I mean, the reach speeds it was based on 8 workers, and the overall speed is probably not that important. Rather, the main point I want to show is the difference between per core performance of DPDK Prefilter with Suricata and just the standalone primary Suricata. When we compare this to, let's say, per core performance, it shows that the standalone Suricata could reach in this setup with such a high bypass ratio 1.1 gigabits per second, while DPDK Prefilter could reach almost 1300 megabits per second. So that means per core performance was increased by 15%, and in the DPDK Prefilter, I also accounted for one extra Prefilter core because yeah, you need extra core for the Prefilter. So that means we go up. I presented these results this September at the DPDK User Space Summit, and after the DPDK User Space Summit, I've looked at the IPS mode as well, and what's the performance of IPS within Suricata. There is a little distinction between the the usual way Suricata does things these days. Usually in the workers IPS setup with AF packet, it's based like this, where when you have an IPS mode and you have 2 interfaces, each interface has its own set of workers, and when you have basically 2 interfaces in which between each you send the packets, then one worker only receives packets of the one interface and sends it to the other interface, and vice versa. I think workers run mode is deemed as the most performant solution these days, but both workers actually share the same flow record in the flow storage. In DPDK Prefilter use case, as it resembles more the auto-FP mode, the DPDK Prefilter pulls packets out of both NICs at the same time. And because the packets are distributed among workers by RSS hash, it always lands to only one worker only. And what this means is we'll see on the graphs. I've tested 2 use cases, and that was basically running Suricata under balanced load on both interfaces. So that means each interface that IPS was configured with received the same amount of traffic. So let's say both received 2 gigabits per traffic, in total 4 gigabits. In this use case, we see that even this little change in like receiving traffic by a single worker, I believe, was able to increase DPDK Prefilter performance by another 1 gigabit per second in out of those 8 workers, and that was Yeah, that was fine. But then I thought of use cases where the symmetrical load happens. Basically, when there is a lot of data flowing on one interface and not much data flowing on the other interface, as some clients would be downloading data from the data center. Then you are kind of wasting the other cores in AF packet mode, in workers run mode on the other interface, because you don't really have that much traffic. So basically, when I was comparing symmetrical load on both interfaces, DPDK Prefilter gave me much higher and more consistent results than AF packet one. Because let's say there were 4 workers of AF packet on one interface and 4 workers on the other interface, and those 4 workers which were assigned to the interface which didn't have that much traffic were kind of bored while the other were working like crazy. In the other case, DPDK Prefilter was able even with symmetrical loads to distribute the traffic among all workers. So that was a really good thing about the DPDK Prefilter as well. And I would like to present also DPDK metadata. So DPDK metadata was kind of planned and I have in mind is a piece of data that you have between the, let's say, RT mbuff structure that's DPDK specific and actual packet. Between those two things, you can have a piece of data that you might be just custom, application custom. And these metadata fields can help Suricata speed up the packet processing. As you can see on the image on the right, if the packet capture method would be able to provide those metadata, for instance, pre-parsed up to L4 headers or pattern matching or hash calculation, then some modules of Suricata can be actually skipped, and that saves us extra CPU cycles to speed up the overall Suricata performance. It can also provide another kind of perspective of information per packet basis. Basically, Suricata might be able to use information from other applications to use that in the matching. Instead of Prefilter, you can have your own application, and that your own application can add this metadata to the individual packets, so that Suricata can use this per packet metadata in its own detection procedures. But of course, DPDK allows you to have it configured, the space statically, so that it means that the space is there even after packet exits Suricata. And Suricata can use also this space in a useful way. It can also add some sort of extra information to the maybe the next application that packet goes to. So you might have your another custom application after Suricata, and Suricata can add those matched, let's say, list of matched rules to the individual packets that are coming out of Suricata. So you have real-time, basically, information about the matched rules that are coming out of Suricata. So metadata are the little thing in front of every packet, and then it allows to pass information extracted from the even just the previous processing or the network card itself, and it can be used by the Suricata. This metadata can it's presented in a like, in connection with DPDK prefilter, but actually in DPDK even network cards can add this metadata to individual packets, so that even Suricata running in the primary mode can use this metadata directly from the network card. And what DPDK prefilter can help you with is that it can help Suricata to prepare for this kind of metadata, so you have it implemented in a software way, and then when you are ready to include those metadata, for instance, in the hardware, then you just switch Suricata to the primary mode and it's all working fine. All right. So what's the state of DPDK prefilter currently? DPDK prefilter can actually communicate with Suricata. It can synchronize the states between each system. It can share configuration between each other. It also, as you've seen, works in IPS and IDS mode. And Suricata can communicate with prefilter through the message channel. It can get flow updates, and it can synchronously bypass the individual flows of Suricata. The metadata are in progress thingy. I do believe it will be, the first experiments will be done very soon, because some of the use cases, as I mentioned, we've already tried to do the decoding part. So we try to decode up to L4 layer some information and pass that information to Suricata so that the L4 decoding can be skipped in Suricata itself. And we also output the set of matched rules of the packet already. So this kind of thing is right now in progress, but hopefully will be released quite soon in one of the experiment branches. So thank you very much, and I'm ready for questions.
Thank you for your talk. I can vouch for your performance on the DPDK because we are using DPDK even since 4x. And I can tell that we were able to get really good performance. One of the problems that we are seeing is with SMB traffic, and you talked about bypass logic. Can you talk about your experience with SMB and how you were able to gain performance?
Right. From my use case, I honestly usually work with traffic that's captured from the backbone, so the backbone networks. So there is a heavy structure of the traffic encrypted. So unfortunately, I'm not entirely sure about the Samba traffic at this time.
Hello, thanks for the presentation. Small question. The test that you did with TLS gives a good performance boost, but I was wondering, could you do selective bypassing? So for example, if you want to keep the first couple of packets of TLS flow, would that be something possible within DPDK?
Certainly. This test was actually done by Suricata rules. So the thing is, Suricata currently supports encrypted traffic bypass after the handshake, and that's also possible. But from my experience, it didn't always bypass that much. It just bypass maybe only 10% of traffic. So I wrote like 4 rules possibly that were really focused on the application data TLS record, and it was trying to search for the TLS encrypted message kinda, and only then bypassed the flow. And it bypassed the flow only when it's seen the encrypted data from both flows, from both directions in the flow. And if you would be interested in keeping, let's say, the first two even encrypted packets of the flow, I believe that could be done also with rules and also with flow ints, for instance.
Thank you.
It's a question from online. Could you please elaborate a bit on the difference between DPDK prefilter and XDP with respect to features and throughput and bypass performance?
Right. Basically, I would say from the architectural point of view, XDP lies in different places. It can live in either kernel or in hardware or as part of, let's say, the soft version, while DPDK lives directly in the user space. And there is a bit of difference because usually XDP programs live on a driver level, and it still goes a bit through the kernel space still. XDP also is eBPF language limited. It allows you to only write application in subset of C, while DPDK allows you to write in full C language with all the libraries available. So I see this point as a huge benefit. DPDK also allows you to, as I mentioned, interconnect the several applications together because that's the way the memory model is set in the DPDK. And from my experience, I was able to reach higher speeds than the XDP, with the XDP software, basically. It allowed me to increase performance by about 10%. I was running XDP in the driver level on a Mellanox card. I'm not sure how it would perform on if it would run directly in the hardware as for instance on Netronom cards. But from the driver level perspective, the XDP didn't bring me much of performance improvements, only about up to 10%, but maybe not even that.
One thing you talked about on the synchronous versus asynchronous performance. So to achieve that, did you have to like spray packets across the two or multiple cores? Can you talk a little bit about how you gained additional performance?
Do you mean the distribution somewhere in these graphs, or rather?
Yeah. It's one of the graphs you had, synchronous versus asynchronous.
Was it or?
Yeah, this one.
Yes. So that can be possibly seen from this image, because I had the AF packet set in the workers run mode, and when you have, let's say, 8 workers total of Suricata workers, then you need to assign 4 workers to the first interface and the other 4 workers to the second interface. And when you have a symmetrical traffic, so basically, let's say elephant flows only on one interface only, then you only have those 4 workers available. But in DPDK prefilter setup, DPDK prefilters pulls packets out of both NICs at the same time, and then aggregates these packets. The network interface cards can calculate RSS hashes on individual packets. And RSS hash is the same for both directions of the traffic. And based on these RSS hashes, they are distributed among workers. And what this allows you to do is that now you have 8 workers available for the whatever direction you have in your setup.
One follow-up on that. Was there any contention that you faced when you increased the number of worker threads?
So far, I've done tests up to 8 workers in total. I'm not sure how it would be on more course.
Question actually related to that one. I mean, I was pretty much wondering the same thing, like, because I noticed with AF packets that if you start increasing the number of workers to more than 8, like 20 workers and similar, performance doesn't scale up linearly. And I was actually wondering if DPDK was performing better in that.
What I believe, it connects with how workers might be connected with each other, and there might be just a higher rate of log contention. Also, and one of the high-level goals of my further work could be kind of trying to divide the logic for inter-core communication and try to minimize that and try to keep as many things as possible within a single core, so that I guess the powerful thing about DPDK, the focus is on the pair core processing, and I would like to center the model of processing around that.
Okay, thanks.
So does that also go for NUMA? If you distribute it from a centralized DPDK flow table and you distribute over all your cores, can you also still divide between NUMA settings to keep from having too much memory misses from different CPUs, different sockets, I mean?
Yeah, so far I've centered my tests around single NUMA nodes mostly, but I mean DPDK allows you to work with cores on different NUMA nodes. It's always preferred to keep the whole setup on one NUMA node, but I mean if you don't have an option, then you can also opt for that as well.
Do you have a question?
Thank you very much.